Part 13. The fake daughter can be either salty or sweet. Author, Wu Zizai. Chapter 121. Chapter 121 Uncle, bite me. The brothers were waiting for dinner at Lun Zhenqi's house. Out of boredom, Gui Chen suddenly walked to the kitchen and patted Lun Zhenqi on the shoulder. "What are you doing?" Lun Zhenqi said in a not very friendly tone. He came to his house every day to eat and drink without showing any sign. "Lun Zhenqi, let me ask you a question," Gui Chen said loudly on purpose, just to let Yang Zizi sitting in the living room hear. Lun Zhenqi rolled his eyes at Gui Chen impatiently. He must have taken the wrong medicine today. If your mother and Yang Zizi fall into the water at the same time, who do you save first? Yang Zizi heard this question and immediately ran over to protect Lun Zhenqi in his arms. Get out, Yang Zizi beat and kicked Gui Chen out of the kitchen. You also know Gui Chen's character, he is unintentional. Lun Zhenqi touched his head and said with a smile, "It's okay, you go out first, there is a lot of oil smoke here." Yang Zizi had no choice but to walk out obediently, and then beat and scolded Gui Chen again. Gui Chen's words kept playing in his mind the story of hundreds of years ago when he watched the Vampire King execute his parents. This scene will never be forgotten by him in his life. His eyes began to turn red, and the spatula he held tightly was crushed into sand. No matter what, he will kill the Vampire King himself. Revenge for your parents. As for other things, he can't worry about that much for the time being. Yang Zizi also told him today that he supported him in getting rid of the bad people in the world without hating him. During the meal, Gui Chen was reluctant and said, "God of War, I'm really sorry just now. How about I ask you a question again?" Yang Zizi glared at Gui Chen and clenched his fists to threaten him. Gui Chen was instantly cowed. "If my sister gets old, will you still love her like this?" Gui Yin asked the question quickly. After hearing Gui Yin's words, Yang Zizi felt a little worried. Although he was still underage, time was always unforgiving. There was a flash of shock in Lun Zhenqi's eyes, as if he was surprised that they would ask such a question. "Gui Yin, what are you talking about?" "My sister obviously." "Ahem." Gui Ziogu deliberately pretended to be choking on food, and Gui Yi winked. Gui Yi immediately shut up, looked at the ceiling, and pretended not to say anything. An imperceptible smile appeared on Lun Zhenqi's lips. Seeing Lun Zhenqi's delay in answering, Yang Zizi panicked and said coquettishly, "Uncle, bite me and turn me into a vampire." Yang Zizi actively stretched his neck to Lun Zhenqi's around the mouth. The brothers were panicked, really worried that this ruthless boy Lun Zhenqi would really bite him. Ghost Xiaogu pulled Yang Zizi away instantly. "You are crazy. A vampire wants to become a human, but you want to become a vampire." This was the first time Yang Zizi saw Ghost Xiaogu looking so fierce. "I'm sorry, sister, Gui Xiaogu realized his mistake. He shouldn't be angry with his sister, but he was too worried. From the moment she saw Lun Zhenqi, they were worried all the time. "It's okay, I know you are all worried about me." Yang Zizi patted Gui Xiaogu on the shoulder to comfort him. She sat down next to Lun Zhenqi again. He had a solemn look on his face, and there was a strong air current all over his body, as if he was holding back something. She could see that he was struggling, and the struggle was very painful. End of this chapter. The fake daughter can be either salty or sweet. Author, Wu Zizai. Chapter 122. Chapter 122 I will love you forever. "Uncle, I'm sorry, I'll never talk about asking you to turn me into a vampire again." Yang Zizi lowered his head and admitted his mistake obediently. He thought Lun Zhenqi was angry because of this. "Fool, you are still young, don't think about things so far away. I will love you forever." Lun Zhenqi held Yang Zizi in his arms. When the brothers saw this scene, they disappeared into the villa collectively. As soon as the brothers got home, They saw Goikale sitting on the sofa. "Lele, why are you here?" Goiziogo asked in surprise. "I'm here to stay for a while, and I'll go back soon." "Then when do you plan to go back?" Goi Chen Chen asked in surprise. Goikale glanced at Goi Chen Chen and said disappointedly, "I'll go back after I finish my work. If you have anything, my brother can help you." Goiziogo was a little worried about what Goikale said. They know best what kind of character their biological sister is like. He is the most noble princess of the blood clan. He has been protected by everyone since he was a child and has never suffered any grievance. Now seeing his beloved man with other girls, he naturally hates it in his heart. His brothers have seen his tricks since he was a child. In order to get what he wants, he will do whatever it takes to hurt everyone. Goikale saw her brother's worries. She laughed sarcastically and said, "Don't worry, I won't hurt Yang Zizi. Instead, I want to become good friends with him." The brothers' eyes widened, and suddenly they didn't know what Goikale was thinking. "But I'm curious as to why you treat him as your sister. He's just an ordinary human being. Because he is kind and the purest girl among humans, we want to protect this human girl." The corners of Goikale's mouth raised slightly. Obviously he didn't believe what his brothers said. But trying to get some information from his brothers would be harder than climbing to the sky. It was better to find the truth by himself. He was not only curious about why his brothers would risk their lives to protect a human being, but they would also risk quarreling with his biological sister. He turned against her, and wanted to find out the identity of the man who was able to rescue Yang Zizi from him that day. He was actually able to save people under the nose of the vampire princess. All of this made her too curious, and she wanted to know the truth too much. Also, she wanted to find out why Lun Zhenji suddenly left the vampire clan in the first place. "How long do you plan to stay?" Goi Chen Chen continued to press. He always felt that Goikale had nothing good to do with them this time. Soon Goikale said, "Are you worried that I will hurt Yang Zizi?" Goikale laughed twice. "Don't worry, I won't hurt her. After all, my brothers have already recognized her as their sister, so naturally she is my sister." Looking at Goikale, it was difficult for the brothers to tell whether her words were true or false. Even with mind-reading skills, it was difficult to guess what she was thinking. But looking at her sincere smile and eyes, it was difficult to doubt what he said. "Is fake. Then stay here. If you dare to hurt Zizi, we will no longer hide the vampire newborn for you." Goiziogo looked at Goikale with a serious face. In the past, he could pamper her when she was too young and ignorant, but now, she has someone who needs to be protected more, and no one can harm her. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The fake daughter can be either salty or sweet. Author, Wu Zai. Chapter 123. Chapter 123, The kitchen was blown up yesterday. In the morning, the brothers were preparing to go to Lunsheng family house for dinner. Goikale was sitting on the sofa and suddenly asked, "Where are you going?" The brothers were all startled. After staying with humans for a long time, they are easily frightened by their own kind. "We're going to the God of War's house for dinner, do you want to go?" Goi Chenchen's casual question was met with disgust and blank looks from all the brothers. Goi Chen Chen simply lowered his head, closed his mouth and stopped talking. 6 people appeared together at Lunsheng family, but the male and female owners of the house had not gotten up yet. Yang Zizi has become very sensitive recently. He wakes up when he hears the slightest movement. After waking up, he can't fall asleep. "You can sleep a little longer this weekend." Lun Zhenji, who would sit on the edge of the bed and sleep with Yang Zizi every night, stroked his head and said very gently, "I can't sleep anymore, I can't sleep." Yang Zizi sat up and threw himself into Lun Zhenji's arms. Then let's go wash up, Lun Zhenji said as the princess picked up Yang Zizi and walked to the bathroom. Yang Zizi was brushing his teeth. When Lun Zhenji walked to the living room, he saw several uncles who eat soft food sitting upright, waiting for his breakfast. But what shocked him was that Gui Kale also came, which made Lun Zhenji very unwelcome. Brother Shenji Gui Kale was the first to notice Lun Zhenji standing behind him, and stood up and looked at him innocently. What are you doing here? Lun Zhenji became wary of her. Their ghost family had never been friendly to humans. Brother Shenji, I'm here to apologize to you. I'm sorry. It was my fault in the past and I hurt Zizi. However, I had to do this for you and the vampire clan. Brother Shenji, can you forgive me? Lun Zhenji was indifferent to the extreme. I will forgive you when you leave the human world. Gui Kale lowered his head, a hint of cunning flashed in his eyes. Brother Shenji, don't worry, I will go back soon. Lun Zhenji said nothing more, turned around and walked to the bathroom, and walked out with Yang Zizi interlocking their fingers. The brothers are used to it. The young couple are showing off their affection all the time. They can just ignore it. They can't get into trouble with the delicious food. Gui Kale looked at Yang Zizi, and anger suddenly arose in his heart, but he did not dare to speak. Why are you here? Yang Zizi asked her indifferently. She was very unwelcome to this uninvited guest. Gui Kale lowered his head, squeezed out a few tears, walked forward, and held Yang Zizi's hand. Yang Zizi was a little confused. What is this? Possessed by a soul? Traveled through time? Why does it seem like he has changed into a different person? I'm sorry, Zizi, I shouldn't hurt you, but you also know the rules of the vampires. Vampires and humans cannot be together, otherwise. Lun Zhenji pulled Yang Zizi to his side in an instant, and the nervous look on his face disappeared in an instant. The kitchen was blown up last night and we couldn't make breakfast. Lun Zhenji winked at his brothers. The brothers understood instantly and took Gui Kale away. Hey, don't leave, what will happen if you don't leave? Yang Zizi also wanted to leave her behind and let her finish what she had not finished. But they have disappeared without a trace. Otherwise, what will happen? Yang Zizi raised his head and asked Lun Zhenji. Tell me quickly, just tell me. Hurry up! Yang Zizi held Lun Zhenji in his arms and jumped up and down, asking him to speak clearly, otherwise he would always be hanging on him. End of this chapter. The fake daughter can be either salty or sweet. Author, Wu Zizai. Chapter 124. Chapter 124 Breaking In. Lun Zhenji smiled and touched the top of his head, and said dotingly, I told you, don't be sad or excited, okay? Although he knew this was impossible, he really had no choice in the face of his child's coquettish behavior. Okay, the child agreed readily. We may never have children in our lifetime. Why? Yang Zizi jumped up excitedly. No wonder every time she wanted to get one more person on her diploma, he would always change the topic. The children of vampires and humans cannot survive. Then you turn me into a vampire, then we can have children. Yang Zizi looked at him and said eagerly. Lun Zhenji slowly closed his eyes, shook his head, and then opened them again, saying, the vampires will not allow children who are not pure vampires to exist. They believe that a child born to a human being who has become a vampire is a shame to their vampires and will kill him. Then it's impossible for us to have children of our own. Yang Zizi couldn't accept this fact at the moment. She loved him and he wanted to have a child for him. You so hope that the second person will come out and share the love I give you. I don't want to. Yang Zizi threw herself into Lun Zhenji's arms. She was very sad that her wish could not be realized. If you like children, we can adopt one. Lun Zhenji hugged her tightly and comforted her. Yang Zizi hung on him and shook his head coquettishly. Lun Zhenji hugged her tightly, his eyes full of apologies to her, not just because Yang Zizi liked children but he couldn't satisfy her. Not long after, Lun Zhenji took his children to work in the company. While his brothers were out and Lun Zhenji and Yang Zizi were not at home, Gui Kale took the opportunity to enter Lun Zhenji's home. She looked at this luxurious and exquisite villa carefully. She was supposed to be the mistress of this villa when he lived with him, but she didn't expect that she would be taken away by a human girl. Yang Zizi, who is he, and why is Lun Zhenji so obsessed with her that she even stays with him at all costs and protects her to the death? Gui Kale rummaged through the entire villa to see if he could find out any information about Yang Zizi's identity. Is he overthinking it, or does Yang Zizi really have an ulterior secret? Gui Kale sighed. Is she going to return without success? No, this is not his style of doing things. He must reveal Yang Zizi's true identity. The crew of Gui Chen shot the scene at the seaside this time. As the main villain of the play, Mu Shenyi naturally has to work hard. Where did Zizi go today? Shenyi started to inquire about Yang Zizi while waiting. Gui Chen looked at the script in his hand, shook his head and said, I don't know. Then what does she like to do on weekends? Mu Shenyi continued to ask. Gui Chen still shook his head and answered absent-mindedly. Gui Chen, you promised to help me chase the seeds. Mu Shenyi punched Gui Chen on the shoulder and shouted loudly. Ghost Chen instantly felt the pain of a broken bone. Oh my god. He was actually broken by someone. If this spreads to the vampire clan, it will be their laughing stock for a year. If you were smart, you would have caught him long ago. Do you still need my help? Gui Chen also shouted to him in a bad tone. Shen Yi was instantly angered by Gui Chen. No one has dared to scold him since he was born. Unexpectedly, he was indirectly scolded by a little human being today. End of this chapter. The fake daughter can be either salty or sweet. Author, Wu Zizai. Chapter 125. Chapter 125 The Boy in the Diary. Finally, he endured it. Only now did he realize that they demons also have patience. Gui Kale stayed in Yang Zizi's room for nearly an hour, and finally found a notebook in a hidden drawer. She opened it and took a look. The hand holding the notebook tightened, and suddenly the veins popped out, and the notebook was so soft in her hand. Each of the previous diary entries was her record of He Lun's wonderful married life, from acquaintance to marriage, and the sweet life after marriage. Yang Zizi recorded them all in this notebook. Every word in the notebook prompted her to kill Yang Zizi as soon as possible. Just as he was about to crush the notebook into pieces, he suddenly accidentally opened the diary at the back. When I was 6 years old, I met a boy who I will never forget in my life. His smile was as bright as the starry sky. Gui Kale was even more angry, occupying the heyday and thinking about other men. After reading the diary, Gui Kale realized that Yang Zizi did not love Lun Zhenji at all. He just thought Lun Zhenji was good looking and wanted to possess him. The true identity of this human girl was finally exposed by her. She looks innocent all day long, but in fact she is more scheming and sophisticated than a vampire. Tonight, he must let Lun Zhenji know the true face of Yang Zizi. Just as he was about to leave with the diary, something pressed in the drawer emitted a bright light. Gui Kale was dazzled by this sight. He walked over, took the box off and saw that it was a shining golden necklace. The pendant of the necklace is a cross with a diamond in the middle. Gui Chao Lezai looked at this necklace carefully. It looked so familiar. Suddenly, Gui Kale remembered that this was the necklace hanging around Lun Zhenji's neck when he first met him. He hadn't seen him wearing it around his neck for a long time. It turned out that it was given to Yang Zizi. He still remembered that when he was a child, Lun Zhenji was willing to be bullied in order not to have his necklace taken away. How could he be willing to give away something so precious in Lun's heyday? Suddenly, the door opened, and Lun Zhenji must have returned. Gui Kale immediately jumped out of the window. Yang Zizi entered the room and took a look at the drawer. Fortunately, everything was there, but her diary was missing. It was the notebook that recorded her and Lun Zhenqi's wonderful life. Why did Goikale take it away? It was not Tu Zeng. Are you worried? She saw that the window was open, so she naturally knew that someone had come in, and who except Goikale had superpowers to enter their home. I'm going to my brother's house, Yang Zizi said to Lun Zhenqi, who was busy in the kitchen. Come back earlier. Yang Zizi knocked on the door of her brother's house. Although she had the key and the villa was in his name, she couldn't just open the door and enter with 5 big men living there. Surprisingly, it was Goikale who opened the door. As soon as Goikale saw Yang Zizi, he showed a mocking expression. Yang Zizi ignored her and took a detour into the villa. It looks like none of my brothers are here. When he was about to turn around and leave, Goikale stood in front of her. Since everything has been delivered to your door, how can I, the princess, allow you to be so free to come and leave as you please? Goikale held his hands and stared at her fiercely. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The fake daughter can be either salty or sweet. Author, Wu Zizai. Chapter 126. Chapter 126. Only I can save him. Goikale, please understand, this is my home. Goikale laughed mockingly and said disdainfully, Yang Zizi, you are really shameless. I have to take it away if it's not yours. She suddenly covered her mouth and said, oh, I almost forgot, you are lowly human beings are all greedy and afraid of death, and you are no exception. Goichao's lyrics are full of thorns. I'm sorry, but my name is written on the property certificate of this villa. Yang Zizi walked to the sofa and sat down domineeringly, as if he were the owner. You, Goikale pointed at Yang Zizi angrily. Brothers, are you crazy? You actually gave your villa to a human. Yang Zizi flashed to Goikale's side and held her chin. You have grown so big, but your parents didn't tell you that you can't point at others. It's very impolite. Politeness means Yang Zizi. As the volume increases, the intensity naturally increases. Goikale struggled desperately. Her strength was surprisingly strong, and he felt that his jaw was about to be dislocated. I will never be lenient towards my enemies. The least severe ones may lie in the ICU for several years, while the worst ones may go to heaven on the same spot. What do you want to do? Even though she knew that she was a human being and had no ability to kill her, she still felt an inexplicable fear in her heart. She is a majestic princess of the blood clan, fearless of heaven and earth, but she actually developed fear for a human girl. If you dare to hurt me, my brothers will never let you go, Goikale threatened. Then let's see whose side they will be on, Yang Zizi said calmly. She never had to consider others when doing anything she wanted to do, because it was enough to have her uncle behind her. Goikale thought about it carefully, and realized that her brothers had become more and more indulgent towards Yang Zizi recently, doting on her more than her biological sister. What about brother Shenqi? You don't care, do you? Seeing that Yang Zizi was stunned, Goikale continued, Brother Shenqi, as a member of the vampire clan, being with you is against the rules of the vampire clan. According to the regulations, Brother Shenqi will be executed by the royal family. Only I, the vampire clan, the most noble princess, I can convince my father to let Brother Shenqi live. Yang Zizi thought of the bedtime stories that Lun Zhenqi told her every night. He had indeed told this similar story, but the ending of this story was tragic. Yang Zizi glanced at Goikale, and she could see that she really loved Lun Zhenqi, and she would not hesitate to violate the rules of the vampire clan for him. She is a vampire princess, and the vampire king is her biological father. Maybe Goikale will relent if the vampire king cries and makes trouble in front of his father. After all, no father in the world would have the heart to refuse the request of a lover from his previous life. For some reason, Yang Zizi actually envied this vampire princess, not because of her noble status, but because she had a complete family. He has parents and brothers. What a happy child she must be. But she has nothing. In the past, what she most hoped for was the love of her parents, but now it seems that she doesn't need it anymore, because she has the most important boy in her life, and he is everything to her. Yang Zizi let her go. Goikale pinched his chin and restored the dislocated part to its original position, making a skeletal sound. Give me back the things. Yang Zizi looked at her indifferently. Of course Goikale knew what she was asking for, but he still pretended to be crazy and asked, "What is it?" "My diary." End of this chapter. The fake daughter can be either salty or sweet. Author, Wu Zizai. Chapter 127. Chapter 127 Fiery Attack. How could your diary be with me? Goikale confronted her in denial. Do you have to do it for me? Yang Zizi's eyes emitted a sharp light. Goikale couldn't help but thump in his heart. Thinking of his noble status, he immediately raised his head and raised his chest, raising his momentum. It doesn't matter if I took it, but it's a pity that it has been burned by me. Yang Zizi was very angry. Every day of his and Lun's prosperous life was recorded in it. How precious it was to her, this woman actually set it on fire. You're angry, aren't you? Ha ha ha, Yang Zizi, you are so selfish, taking advantage of brother Shenchi, you are still thinking of others. Goikale is so patient, he actually read all of her diary. You don't love brother Shenchi at all, why do you want to stay with him? Goikale shouted uncontrollably. I don't need to prove to anyone that I love him. If you insist on asking me to prove it, I can let you stay in our house for a few days. Yang Zizi raised his lips and said contemptuously. With her fiery princess temper, she would become jealous and crazy when she saw the look Lun Zhenchi looked at Yang Zizi, and she might not be able to stay there for even a minute. Ghost Kale bared her teeth in rage, her palm slowly burned with a ball of fire, and she was about to attack Yang Zizi. Suddenly, Goikale seemed to feel the aura of Lun Zhenchi approaching quickly, and his brothers seemed to be vaguely following behind him. She immediately grabbed Yang Zizi's hand, pushed it on herself, and pushed herself to the ground. She immediately looked pitiful and tearful, and anyone who saw it felt heartbroken. Lun Zhenchi happened to appear in front of Yang Zizi at this time. He took Yang Zizi into his arms and asked, "Are you okay?" Goikale looked at them in shock. It was obvious that she had been pushed down, but brother Shenchi was indifferent to the victim, but was full of care for the perpetrator. Brother Shenchi, Goikale cried and called his name. Lun Zhenchi looked at the sky and was speechless, but finally took steps to help her up. Yang Zizi pulled him tightly and imitated Goikale's tone and said, "Brother Shenchi," his eyes were full of jealousy. Lun Zhenchi laughed, took back his steps, touched her head and said, "Then let's go home." "Brother Shenchi," Goikale shouted loudly and aggrievedly at Lun Zhenchi's back, which sounded very pitiful. Yang Zizi sighed, thinking that he had helped his uncle before, and turned around to help her up, but Goikale was very unhappy. Taking this opportunity, she inspired a fire in the palm of her hand and knocked the poplar seeds out of the glass with one palm. The glass shattered and made a crisp sound. The brothers suddenly appeared and caught Yang Zizi. He felt uncomfortable all over, and when he saw it, it turned out that countless pieces of fast glass were piercing into her skin, causing blood to flow out. She saw in the villa, Lun Zhenchi's eyes turned red, and he was frantically attacking Goikale, as if he was determined to kill her. The brothers tried their best to stop him, but he was the god of war, and the brothers couldn't stop him at all. In the end, Goi Chen Chen didn't know what he said to him, and Lun Zhenchi was entangled and in pain. Yang Zizi's heart suddenly started to feel painful. "Go and see Zizi, she needs you by her side more." Goi Ziogu patted Lun Zhenchi's shoulder and said seriously. The fragments in Yang Zizi's skin began to slowly fall off, and the pricked skin also began to heal slowly. Her waist was also attacked by Goikale's fierce fire. A large area of her clothes had been burned, and the skin on her waist was also bloody. But the brothers didn't seem very worried, as if this was something they expected. Lun Zhenji walked up to Yang Zizi, knocked his brothers away ruthlessly, picked up Yang Zizi, and left. Yang Zizi looked at this man. He was very sad. Was he blaming himself for not being able to protect her properly? "Uncle, I'm fine." Yang Zizi touched his cheek, trying to make him smile. End of this chapter. The fake daughter can be either salty or sweet. Author, Wu Zizai. Chapter 128. Chapter 128. Uncle, don't frown. He was still frowning, and Yang Zizi was worried. In the past, whenever he was unhappy, Yang Zizi only had to act coquettishly and he would immediately light up with a smile. Why was he unable to do anything this time? "Uncle, I'm really fine." Yang Zizi hooked his neck and left a kiss under his chin. Lun Zhenji finally responded to her, "You are not allowed to go see Gui Kale alone in the future." You know, Lun Zhenji's eyes revealed doting and worry, but his expression was solemn. Yang Zizi nodded hurriedly, not daring to refute for a moment. Lun Zhenji gently placed Yang Zizi on the sofa. He felt relieved when he saw that all the glass shards on her body fell off and the wounds were almost healed. It's just that the part of the waist that was burned by the fire didn't seem to recover so quickly, which made Lun Zhenji worried. Flame is one of the 6 most powerful abilities of the vampires. A vampire caught in her flames can lie down for hundreds of years at best, or go to untouched at worst. In order to prevent him from worrying, Yang Zizi changed the subject and said, "Uncle, look, these small wounds of mine healed automatically." Yang Zizi was very surprised by this. How could he, an ordinary human, become more and more like a vampire? Close. "Fool, I can transfer my abilities," Lun Zhenji said with a smile. So that's it. If Lun Zhenji hadn't told her today, she would have thought she was bitten by a vampire and turned into a vampire. His heart began to twist. From the moment he found out that he fell in love with her, he swore that he would never lie to Yang Zizi. However, from that day on, his first lie appeared, and then a lie completes a lie. In the end, will it become the trigger for losing her? "Why are you frowning again?" Yang Zizi stretched out his hand to smooth Lun Zhenji's brow. Lun Zhenji smiled reluctantly and glanced at his slowly healing waist with distress. "Does it still hurt?" Yang Zizi shook his head. "It doesn't hurt anymore." "Uncle, don't frown in the future, otherwise I will think you don't like to be with me." Lun Zhenji immediately showed a big smile. How could he not like being with her? He liked it so much that he wished he could be with her all the time. However, his identity would really make everything go smoothly. Go ahead. If possible, he really wanted to break away from the vampire clan, but the price was the death penalty. What would she do if he left? He was everything to her. How could he let her lose everything? "Zizi, if our love encounters obstacles, please believe me. I love you. Even if I tell lies about not loving you, you must firmly believe that I love you." He held her tightly. Holding her tightly in his arms, he was too afraid of losing her, more afraid than he was 900 years ago. Yang Zizi remembered what Gui Kale said to her. Could it be that he might be sentenced to death because he violated the rules of the vampire clan? "Don't worry, I believe you. I will never doubt the relationship between us." Although she acted very calmly, he was still afraid in his heart. Why was the time with her boy always so short? Because of the special status of Lun Zhenji, they will eventually face a fierce battle. But she won't be afraid, because with him by her side, she never needs to be afraid. Lun Zhenji took another look at Yang Zizi's waist, and as he expected, it was completely healed. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The fake daughter can be either salty or sweet. Author, Wu Zizai. Chapter 129. Chapter 129 He is out for revenge. You go, we don't want to see you. Goiziogo turned his back to Goikale and said disappointedly. He originally thought that Goikale and Yang Zizi would get along like sisters, but he didn't expect that they would become enemies because of a boy. He really couldn't believe that Goikale actually had strong murderous thoughts towards Yang Zizi. How could she have murderous thoughts towards Yang Zizi? Goikale was in so much pain. For the sake of prosperity, he became unscrupulous, even if it meant killing one person. As long as she could get the man she loved, she felt that whatever she did was the right choice. But she was still wrong. When he saw when she was about to kill Yang Zizi, the way he looked at her was as if he had sworn hatred for her. At that moment, he was really frightened. Perhaps, from that moment on, she was in his mind. He is the enemy. Obviously she wanted to be nice to him, but she made him hate her. Her heart ached, but she remembered that when they were little, friendship was very sweet. It would be great if she could go back to the past. He would be willing to trade everything for her. Her tears of despair flowed into her stomach. After all, he already hates her to the core. She hurt his most beloved woman. I will leave, but before I leave I just want to know who Yang Zizi is and why you are so protective of her. Goiyi took a step forward and was about to tell her, but was stopped by Goiziogo's look. Seeing that her brothers were reluctant to answer, she finally gave up on the question and asked another question that he cared more about and had wondered about for a long time, saying, "Then you can always tell me why Brother Shenji suddenly left the royal family." Goikale's eyes were filled with tears, and her eyes were full of prayers for them. He might not know anything about other people's affairs, but as long as it was about the prosperous world, she didn't want to miss it at all. Lun Shenji's parents were killed by our father himself. Goiziogo told her that she should know, lest she would be confused and not know anything in the future. What? Goikale's legs were too weak to stand, and he almost fell back. How is this possible? How is this possible? If the father killed Brother Shenji's parents, how could Brother Shenji come? Where's the royal family? He's out for revenge, Goi Nanjun said calmly. It was rare for the brothers to have the same mood today, and their eyes were filled with worry. However, he underestimated the blood royal family and never found a chance to take revenge. Therefore, he left the royal family. As for his next plan, we don't know. This is also a point that worries the brothers. Lun Shenji knows that Yang Zizi is their sister, but he never believes that she is their biological sister. They really can't guess Lun Shenji's heart. Does he really not believe it or not? Is there any premeditation? But no matter what, they will fight tooth and nail to protect their sister. You are lying to me, right? You want me to give up my feelings for Brother Shenji, so are you lying to me? Goikale shouted desperately. How could they become enemies overnight? She didn't believe it. She would never believe it. Brothers were silent. Looking at them, it didn't look like they were joking, and it was even less likely that her brothers would make fun of something like this just to make her give up her prosperous life. End of this chapter. The fake daughter can be either salty or sweet. Author, Wu Zizai. Chapter 130. Chapter 130 He insists on pestering me. You must have lied to me. Goikale refused to accept this fact and ran and disappeared into the villa. The crew has called it a day, but Goi Chen Chen has been catching up on several scenes overnight. He can finally rest for a while. Living a human life is not easy. In order to make money, he works day and night. Fortunately, he is a vampire and does not need to sleep. He can be energetic every day, and the crew members on the same set are envious of his state. When Goi Chen Chen was about to drive back, a person suddenly appeared in the back seat. The curtain falls. Hooked him greatly. This was really embarrassing for him. The vampire prince of his noble clan was actually frightened by a human. Muchen Yi, why are you in my car? I miss Zizi, I want to see him in order to make money. Mu Shanai also stayed on the set for 2 days. He had not seen Yang Zizi for 2 days. If you miss her, go to school to find her. Why are you looking for me? Gui Chen Chen was speechless. What kind of brain does a human have? There is no basic brain circuit. Today is the weekend, school is on holiday. You are Zizi's brother. If I follow you, I will naturally find her. Ghost Chen Chen thought for a while. It seemed like that was the case, there was nothing wrong with it. Finally, Gui Chen Chen brought Mu Chenai home. When the brothers saw Mu Chenai, they habitually became more vigilant, and kept blaming Gui Chen Chen with their eyes for bringing a stranger home so casually. What if your identity is discovered? He insisted on pestering me. Gui Chen Chen looked at his brothers with an innocent face. Here you come. As a human being, everyone who comes is a guest. Come on, Mu Shenyi, sit down quickly. Gui Yunyu greeted Mu Shenyi warmly. Gui Yunyu actually knows him. Gui Yunyu suddenly felt a murderous aura rushing towards him from around him. His lips slipped, accidentally revealing that he and Mu Chenai knew each other. Do you know each other? Gui Yi asked. Yes, they. Just when Mu Chenai was about to tell how they met, Gui Chen Chen suddenly coughed hard and explained with a smile, we are colleagues, in the same crew, and the fourth brother often go to visit the class and you will get to know each other from time to time. Are you brothers? Mu Chenai asked. For some reason, he felt a familiar feeling, as if he had heard someone mention the quintuplets somewhere. I couldn't remember it for a moment. Yes, Gui Chen Chen replied with a smile. An hour later, the brothers began to chase away the guests, and it was very obvious, fearing that humans with slow reactions would not understand. Mu Shenai was very cheeky, and bluntly said that he wanted to live in their house for a while, so that he could go to and from get off work with Gui Chen Chen. 3 votes rejected and 2 voted yes. Let him sleep with me, and there will never be any accidents. Gui Chen Chen put his arm around Mu Chenai's shoulders and vowed. After almost half a month of getting along, they seemed to be getting along better and better. They found common hobbies and topics, and their relationship skyrocketed, and they soon became like brothers. Gui Chen Chen has a stubborn temperament, so naturally his brothers can't defeat him. It's just a human being anyway, so it won't last long. They get along fairly well, the brothers didn't reveal any clues, and Mu Shenai didn't notice anything weird about the villa. On Sunday, my brothers went out to look for food at 3 o'clock in the morning. They looked for food for a whole day. Although they also eat human food, they are naturally bloodthirsty and cannot stop being bloodthirsty. End of this chapter.